I want to ask you first, big picture, is this a political statement? Is this like a combination of occupy the stock market and storm the stock market combined? So instead of pitchforks, Reddit is actually the weapon?
Well, I'm not necessarily convinced of that. I do think this is clearly a function of the Federal Reserve easy money policies, flooding the market with cheap capital. That cheap capital has to go somewhere. The market has certainly changed. It's constantly dynamic. It's something that you have to adapt to or die in the market. And it just shows that the market's evolving. There's new constituents out there, whether they be on Reddit or Twitter or Seeking Alpha, that you really have to understand why they're buying a stock before you make a decision, whether it be to short it or buy it as well. There's tons of reasons why stocks go up, sometimes fundamental, sometimes not. With what we do, we obviously try to conduct value-added forensic research to illustrate, variant views to investors, and it just means the bar has risen for us that we have to now appeal to this new market constituent to help them understand what we do and what the short case is for a stock before they blindly buy.
Ben, you mentioned the market is evolving. On this specific point, though, the market is evolving against short sellers, against people who do exactly what you do. How do you offset that when you're making a position?
Well, I think risk management just becomes more vital. We really have to make sure positions are sized well, and have to make sure we clearly understand what the share structure is, who's in the shares, what the likely catalysts are, and make sure we can communicate to the other side to show them variant information. I mean, I think, as I said, the bar has just risen. It's not sufficient enough to go to a market and give a few fundamental bullet points, why you're short a stock. We try to come up with real forensic research, hard to obtain information,
Ben,
employee customer interviews.
Have you read some of these subreddits? It's not as if these people are actually reading research and talking about fundamentals on these platforms. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it doesn't seem like they're actually trading on fundamentals here. So it doesn't really matter how forensic your evidence is. I'm not sure it would make a difference. So at this point, how would you short a stock if you don't believe in its thesis and its core value?
Sure. Well, with us, if you go to our website, sprucepointcap.com, we tend to research and write about a variety of different companies. Some tend to be larger, 10, 15, $20 billion S&P companies that are a little bit more institutional owned. Appealing to institutional owners, we've generally had good success. Conversely, as you said, we have to look to see who the share structure. If it's a bunch of Reddit shareholders, it might be a little bit more difficult, or we might have to take a little bit more.
But Ben, just to jump in on this, look, on Vonnie's point. The Reddit shareholders, and if we're just talking about them in this case, they came in after the fact. They weren't pre-existing holders that you go up against. So how do you cope with that? How do you say to your investors, look, we want to take the short position, but the shares could go up 300% against us, basically because we've taken a short position, because we've done something that, as a strategy right now in the market, for whether it's on good research or not, is coming under attack?
Right. No, clearly, look, I would characterize the market as, a buoyant bubble-like. There's no pressing desire for us to come to the market with a new idea tomorrow or next week. We certainly take our time to do our research on our timetable. I agree with you. The market's strong, and, we need to maybe take a step back in the near term and focus more on research and
okay, Ben, so give us some research on some of these companies. Do you have any short theses for any of these companies, and what would it be? Pick one and sell us on it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go to our website, we have a lot of our recent ideas and campaigns. We're not involved with GameStop. We've not had a position in that. That's not the setup that we tend to find favorable. I mean, we tend to look for companies with lower short interest, under 10%. When you have 100% of the float short, it's just sort of a signal there again that you could be set up for a short squeeze. So at the moment, not prepared to share any new ideas. I can tell you we're working on some very exciting, very interesting ones. But you can certainly go to our website and review some recent ideas.
Ben, I'm just looking on your website now. I'm looking at Magnite. You put out some research. It looks like earlier this year, it's up 20% just in 2021 alone. Again, in this rising market and under these circumstances where you are seeing, I don't want to suggest that these stocks aren't well researched, but if you're seeing this sort of irrational exuberance, if you like, on the other side, how do you take your positions?
Sure. So if you go to our research and read the Magnite, you'll see that we also disclose that we're long Roku and long Pubmatic as hedges. And so, while you point out Magnite is up 20%, I think if you look at the hedges, they're up that or more. So again, I think risk management becomes very much of a focus here, sizing the positions correctly, make sure you understand how these positions move relative to peers, and then having appropriate hedges on so that, you can maximize your alpha in the trade.
Ben, the idea that there's buckets of money going into these stocks now and helping these companies to higher valuations, does that trouble you at all? Is that something that should be, looked at by regulators? And what kinds of measures do you think we'll see in coming days, if any, from regulators and from other participants that might stop these companies actually selling short their own stock?
Well, I think it only becomes a regulatory matter to the extent there's materially false information, being disseminated. The fact that these stocks are up 10, 15, 100%, is just evidence of too much money chasing too few good opportunities and/or a bubble. And just because the stock's up doesn't mean it's being manipulated. So I'm not sure what regulators are doing. Certainly, I hope they are reading, Reddit blogs. I hope they're reading Seeking Alpha blogs. I hope they're reading my own research, right? Everybody should be scrutinized in terms of what they say and what they do. But no, I have no idea what regulators are doing. I think what's more incumbent is that the Fed have a pulse on what's happening in the marketplace, not just look at stocks as a measure of inflation, but look at other alternative asset classes, whether it be cryptos. We're seeing signs of froth in, the coins, currencies, even baseball cards. I had read a Mickey Mantle baseball card sold for $5 million. I mean, there's signs of inflation everywhere, and I hope the Fed takes into consideration when considering their monetary policy.
Ben, I have a question around the sort of messaging in terms of what you do, what short sellers traditionally do, indeed what activist investors do as well. Obviously to sort of generate the best returns, there is a publicity aspect to this. You come on shows like this to talk about your positions. You send out public letters, do these campaigns in public. Now that seems to be kind of putting a target on your back if you do have on the other side people who are going after the shorts, going after the activists. Do you think, we're going to see a shift in the way these campaigns are conducted, perhaps more behind the scenes and less of this sort of, public berating of companies that you're going after?
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I can tell you at Spruce Point here, it's, it's business as usual. I mean, we're very fundamental focused. We think that in the long run, if our research is right, it'll pay for itself. We've never charged the public for any of our research. I mean, I've given over 10 years of my experience away for free to the public. I have 20 years of experience, in the industry, and I make a good faith effort to do the best I can to try to, share varying views. And so from my perspective, nothing's really changed.
Yeah, I mean, it is the whole thing fascinating. Do you imagine that a lot of people will get hurt in the process here? I mean, if there are real reasons for these companies to have significant short interest outstanding, could some of these day traders that are maybe a little more optimistic get badly burned?
Well, I think it needs to happen, right? Every investor needs to lose money to appreciate taking risk. I mean, I've lost money. You talk to any investor, they've lost money. It's a part of the game. It's part of the business. I think when it becomes too easy to make money, and when you see like what we're seeing now, companies with no basis go up 1,000%, even companies in bankruptcy. I can recall the situation, was it Hertz or whatever, the rental car company going up, even though it was effectively insolvent. Yeah, I think investors need to lose money. They need to take some pain, and eventually some of the froth will need to be wiped out of the system.